Throughout human history, medicine has evolved from mysterious rituals and natural remedies to the cutting-edge pharmaceutical science we know today. But what if we told you that some of the most effective treatments in ancient Egypt came from one of the most unlikely sources, animal dung? If you're curious about how modern pharmacies stack up against these ancient cures, and how something so unexpected could actually work, subscribe to the channel for more fascinating explorations into medical history and science. Today, we're diving deep into the stark contrast between sterile, modern pharmacies and the ingenious remedies of ancient Egyptian healers. The journey from dung-based medicines to today's gleaming pharmacy shelves is a story of human ingenuity, trial and error, and the surprising effectiveness of nature's gifts. In modern pharmacies today, you'll find rows upon rows of carefully organized medications, each one synthesized in laboratories and tested through rigorous clinical trials. These spaces are designed for precision and safety. White-coated pharmacists move methodically through aisles lined with illuminated shelves, checking prescriptions on digital screens and verifying every detail before handing over a medication to a customer. The entire environment speaks of scientific authority and trust. Everything is labeled, categorized, and tracked through computer systems that would have seemed like pure magic to an ancient healer. But let's take a step back in time to ancient Egypt, a civilization that thrived for thousands of years without any of this modern technology. The Egyptians faced similar health challenges to what we face today: infections, digestive issues, inflammation, and wounds that refused to heal. Their solution? They turned to what nature provided, including one remarkable ingredient that modern science is only now beginning to understand: animal dung. Now, before you dismiss this as primitive superstition, consider this. Many of the world's most important modern medicines are actually derived from natural sources. Aspirin came from willow bark. Penicillin came from mold. The Egyptians, working with limited understanding of germ theory or chemistry, somehow discovered that certain types of animal waste possessed genuine healing properties. Archaeological evidence, preserved in papyri and tomb inscriptions, reveals that Egyptian physicians mixed dung from cattle, goats, and other animals with herbs, oils, and minerals to create poultices and salves. These weren't random combinations either. The Egyptians kept detailed records of their medical practices, showing a systematic approach to treatment that deserves far more respect than history has typically given it. So what made animal dung effective? The answer lies in chemistry and microbiology. Certain animal droppings contain naturally occurring compounds that possess antimicrobial properties. When mixed with the right herbs and oils, these compounds could prevent infection and promote healing. The Egyptians didn't understand the science behind it, but they understood the results. Wounds treated with these dung-based remedies healed faster and became infected less often than wounds left untreated. In modern terms, we now know that some animal feces contain beneficial microorganisms and compounds like ammonia that have genuine antiseptic properties. The Egyptians stumbled upon this truth through careful observation and generations of accumulated knowledge. Contrast this with the modern pharmacy approach. Today, when you have a wound, you receive antibiotics synthesized in a laboratory. These are precisely calibrated, tested for purity, and verified for safety. A modern pharmacist can tell you the exact chemical composition, the mechanism of action, and the potential side effects. Everything is reproducible, measurable, and explainable through the lens of modern chemistry. And this approach works remarkably well. Modern antibiotics have saved countless millions of lives and transformed medicine into a precise science. Yet here's the interesting part. Some researchers are now looking back at ancient remedies with fresh eyes. The World Health Organization and academic institutions worldwide are investigating traditional medicines, including some that use animal products, to see if they contain compounds that modern pharmaceutical science might have overlooked. In a way, modern pharmacies are returning to the library of nature, but with the tools of chemistry and biology to understand why these remedies actually work. The Egyptian approach was fundamentally empirical. Healers observed what worked and what didn't, accumulated knowledge over generations, and passed it down through oral tradition and written records on papyri. There was no understanding of bacteria or viruses, no concept of antiseptic properties or antimicrobial compounds. Yet through this process of trial and error, they developed treatments that were genuinely effective. The modern pharmacy is the opposite. It's based on theoretical understanding first. Scientists hypothesize a mechanism, test it rigorously, and only then bring it to market. This approach is generally more efficient and safer, but it's also more expensive and takes longer to develop new medicines. If you found this comparison between ancient and modern medicine valuable, please like this video. It helps us continue bringing you these deep dives into fascinating historical and scientific topics. Now, the application methods also differed dramatically. In ancient Egypt, dung-based remedies were typically applied as poultices directly to the skin. Healers would mix the animal waste with other ingredients, spread it on cloth, and bind it to the affected area. Sometimes it was consumed orally, though this was riskier and required careful preparation. The ancient Egyptians understood intuitively what modern medicine has confirmed. The route of administration matters greatly. Topical application of their dung-based salves meant that the antimicrobial compounds could work directly on the infection, without the risks associated with systemic absorption. Modern pharmacies offer similar flexibility today. You can get topical antibiotics, oral medications, intravenous treatments, and everything in between. Each route is chosen based on where in the body you need the medicine to work, and how quickly you need it to act. The precision and variety available in modern pharmacies would astound an Egyptian physician. Yet the fundamental principle remains the same. Get the active compound to the site of the problem. The Egyptians also understood something that modern medicine sometimes forgets: combination therapy. They rarely used animal dung alone. Instead, they mixed it with herbs like garlic, which we now know has its own antimicrobial properties, and with oils that can soothe inflammation. This multi-ingredient approach created a synergistic effect, where the components worked better together than they would have separately. Modern pharmacology is rediscovering this principle too. Many contemporary medicines use combinations of compounds to achieve better results with fewer side effects. The Egyptians were onto something genuinely sophisticated, even if they didn't understand the chemistry. Storage and preservation were also challenges that ancient and modern medicine both had to solve, though in very different ways. The Egyptians kept their preparations in sealed clay vessels, protecting them from contamination and oxidation. They understood that air exposure and contamination could ruin a remedy. Modern pharmacies use sterile glass bottles, climate-controlled storage, and expiration dates calculated through stability testing. Both approaches recognize the same fundamental truth: what you're storing will degrade over time, and you need to protect it from the environment. The main difference is that modern pharmacies can predict exactly how long a medicine will remain effective, down to the day, while the Egyptians had to rely on experience and observation. Documentation represents another stark contrast. Egyptian healers recorded their recipes and treatments on papyri, creating what amounts to the world's first medical textbooks. The famous Edwin Smith papyrus, dating to around 1600 BCE, contains detailed descriptions of procedures, diagnoses, and treatments. This was sophisticated record-keeping for its time. Modern pharmacies, by contrast, have computerized records that track every medication, every prescription, every customer. Pharmacists can instantly access information about drug interactions, contraindications, and patient allergies. Yet the underlying motivation is identical. You need to document what you did so you can repeat it, improve it, and teach others. One critical difference lies in safety testing and regulation. The Egyptian approach was necessarily experimental. A new remedy was tried, and if patients improved, it was added to the healer's repertoire. If patients died, the treatment was abandoned. This brutal pragmatism actually worked to eliminate the most dangerous treatments, but it also meant people died testing new medicines. Modern pharmaceutical regulation is designed to prevent this. New drugs undergo years of laboratory testing animal trials, and human clinical trials before they reach a pharmacy shelf. The FDA and similar agencies worldwide ensure that benefits outweigh risks. This process is expensive and slow, but it saves lives by catching dangerous compounds before they reach patients. If the question is whether animal dung was actually an effective medicine, the answer based on modern scientific analysis is yes, with important caveats. Certain animal droppings do contain antimicrobial compounds. When prepared correctly and applied to appropriate conditions, they did provide genuine therapeutic benefit. Archaeological and historical evidence suggests that Egyptian patients did recover from wounds and infections at rates that suggest real efficacy, not just coincidence. However, they were also inconsistent compared to modern antibiotics. The antimicrobial properties of animal dung vary depending on the animal's diet, the storage conditions, and the specific preparation. Modern medicines are standardized, so every dose is identical. This consistency and predictability is one of the great achievements of modern pharmacy. Modern pharmacies represent the pinnacle of this evolution towards standardization and predictability. Every medication contains exactly what the label says it contains, in exactly the right amount, prepared under rigorous quality control. This consistency means that a patient in New York receives the exact same treatment as a patient in London or Tokyo. The Egyptians could never achieve this level of standardization with their natural preparations. Yet we shouldn't dismiss their approach as primitive. They were working with the tools available to them and achieved genuine success. In fact, many modern medicines are still derived from natural sources. Plants, fungi, and even animal products continue to be investigated for their pharmaceutical potential. The difference is that modern science isolates the active compounds, synthesizes them in pure form, and tests them rigorously. We've taken the Egyptian approach and supercharged it with chemistry and biology. The future of medicine might even involve returning to some of these ancient compounds, but understanding them through the lens of modern science. Researchers are actively investigating whether the compounds in animal dung that the Egyptians discovered could be incorporated into modern treatments. Some work in wound care and infection prevention has actually shown promise. The ancient remedy might be too crude and variable for modern use, but the active principles within it could be extracted, purified, and formulated into a consistent, safe, and effective modern medicine. This would be a beautiful synthesis of ancient wisdom and modern science. Cost is another important distinction between ancient and modern medicine. Preparing an Egyptian dung-based remedy required only the ingredients themselves, which were freely available. The cost was minimal, which meant that healing treatments were accessible to even poor Egyptians. Modern pharmaceuticals, by contrast, are expensive. The cost of research, development, clinical trials, and regulatory approval gets passed on to consumers. A modern antibiotic might cost $10 or $50, while an ancient remedy costs nothing. However, the modern medication is more effective, more consistent, and safer. You're paying not just for the active compound, but for the assurance that it works, that it's pure, and that it won't harm you. Both systems have their advantages and disadvantages. Accessibility and equity remain challenges in modern medicine in a way they weren't in ancient Egypt, where healing materials were free and abundant. The psychological component of medicine is something both ancient and modern approaches understood. When a patient visits an Egyptian healer and receives a carefully prepared remedy, they experience the power of belief and ritual. This placebo effect is real and significant. Studies show that a patient's belief in a treatment can measurably improve outcomes.